Tonight on Let It Rip.
Tudor Dixon. Tudor. Thank you, Tudor. Thank you. I heard you're doing well.
She got a shout out at the Trump rally. Now the West Michigan Republican is ready to let it rip. What Tudor Dixon has to say about the police killing in Grand Rapids, how she would have handled the pandemic, and why she thinks your tax dollars should go to both public and private schools. Time now to Let It Rip. Charlie Langton joins me as we continue our in-depth coverage of the governor's race tonight. We welcome another Republican candidate, West Michigan's own Tudor Dixon, who's both a former Steel executive and cable news broadcaster. And we're going to begin with news of the day because really this is making headlines across the country. As a candidate running for governor, when it comes to the Grand Rapids police releasing that video showing an officer shoot an unarmed black man, 26-year-old Patrick Lyoya, you say you're unequivocally behind the police in this case. Why?
I would argue that he wasn't unarmed. He had taken the police officer's taser. For a minute, the police officer asked him to drop the taser, demanded he drop the taser. He refused to do that. He's struggling. That police officer was at the point where he knew his life was in danger.
Why not wait for the investigation to continue? Why just jump in a day after the video comes out?
Why do we continually glorify criminals and criminalize police? Why are we saying that the police officer was wrong right off the bat? This is a new thing that has happened in the past few years where we criminalize our police. We struggle to get police into our police officers, into our departments today. And police don't want to be in these police departments because of this very thing. Because when there's an incident like this, the police officer is immediately criminalized.
But we're talking about the use of deadly force. And even in the manual for Grand Rapids Police, as well as Michigan State Police, the Detroit Police, they say the use of deadly force only if a person is fleeing who allegedly committed a violent felony. This was a bad license plate.
He's in a situation where this man has his taser. He's in a situation where his life is at risk, and he doesn't know who else in the community is at risk. If that officer is tased and he grabs his gun, what is the next step there? How much danger is the community in?
You let him go. You let him go. It's a bad license plate. The car was there. He had a passenger. Let him go. I guess the point, though, is that this is deadly force, and I understand it's controversial, but do you think, though, as governor, that policies need to be changed or maybe reinforced because people are not being police officers anymore? This probably is not going to help.
I think it's not going to help that the media immediately comes out and criminalizes the police officer in this case. That's the problem that we face, and we face it across the country, that our police are under attack. I've talked to many of our retired police officers, and they say, I left the force because this is the exact reason. You could easily lose your life and go behind bars or get killed, and nobody's going to come to the defense of the police officer. If it had gone the other way and the police officer were the one who were dead today, would we be talking about it?
Tudor, let me ask you this. For the family of Lyoya and anybody who's watching right now whose son or daughter has been involved with a police altercation, mistakes are made, but should he have paid with his life?
What needed to happen is that he needed to obey what the police officer said. If we don't have law and order in this country, what do we have? That is the basic right of people, to have law and order. So you adhere to what police officers say. I back the police officers.
What can you as governor do to get more people, good qualified people, to join the police and retain them and stay as a police officer?
We have to seriously fund the police. We have to defend our police officers. We have to support our police officers, and we have to train our police officers.
When you take a look at Governor Gretchen Whitmer and what she did in the last 2 years, obviously she's come under wide criticism, even from some Democrats who say some of her rules were draconian and some of her, she was simply too strict. I know you've had a lot of criticism wielded her way. What would you have done differently right away?
Look, we know that when you look at nursing homes, she received a letter right off the bat saying, whatever you do, do not put COVID-positive patients into nursing homes. But she did that. We know that she was also, when it came to unemployment, told by the federal government, you have too many people on your unemployment rolls. You have to clear that off, get these people off. We have an $8.5 billion mistake in unemployment. There were multiple things. Look at what she did with restaurants and lodging. She shut them down and continued to leave them shut down and then went back after them again. Many people consider this governor vindictive. She went after small business owners. She went after America's barber, Karl Manke. She went after Marlena Hackney. All of these things were unnecessary. These were misdemeanors, and she went after them.
It was a novel virus, and at the time we knew what we knew. President Donald Trump obviously came under a lot of criticism for his initial handling of this pandemic. Isn't it just because it was COVID? This is a pandemic that no one had seen before.
His initial handling, you said his initial handling. Yeah, people made a choice in the first 15 days, and then we saw states opening up. And she saw these states opening up too. She saw Florida, they were fine. She saw Texas, she saw Georgia. Look at South Dakota, where Governor Kristi Noem said, we trusted the people of the state. She didn't trust anyone. That was, I think, the biggest mistake Gretchen Whitmer made, was to not trust the people that had businesses. People with businesses come up with safety plans all the time. Their ultimate goal is to keep their employees and their customers safe, and they know how to do it. She could have trusted as well.
As governor, you would take a back road then and let the business decide how to handle a pandemic?
Absolutely, especially when you look at the Restaurant and Lodging Association. They submitted their plan. This is our safety plan, and they got a letter back saying received from the governor's office, and they were kept shut down.
Do you think the governor was treated more harshly because she's a woman?
No.
Why?
I think she was treated harshly because her rules hurt people's livelihoods and hurt families and hurt students. And then she didn't try to help students. When you look at the students that now we see, more than 50% of our third graders this year failed their literacy exam, and she was given an opportunity for $1,000 reading scholarships, and she vetoed it. So no, I don't think it has anything to do with her gender. I think it absolutely has to do with the fact that her policies failed the people of Michigan.
One of your opponents today came out and said basically that the trial in Grand Rapids, the federal trial, that there was an acquittal, of course, and there were hung jury on a couple, but that the governor may have faked a kidnapping plot to further her 2020 chances in the election. It's 𝘋𝘦𝘵𝘪 said that. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. I think that the trial has been very interesting. There's obviously an interesting factor of how much of a role did the FBI play in what happened with Gretchen Whitmer, and did she ever think she was in danger? It seems as though she did not.
The jury got it right.
Yeah, I am looking at what the jury is saying and saying this is very interesting. We should look further at what the FBI.
Do you think it's wrong to go forward because there's more prosecutions? If you were, again, it's governors, you necessarily can't do that, but would you try more people again on these facts as you know them?
I would have to take a look at it.
Well, when you take a look at where we're at right now in the state of Michigan, if you look at the great divide between Republicans and Democrats, the seeds of that divide are sowed right here in Michigan. There are extremists on both sides. You know that, I know that. What would you do as governor to bring people together and also to serve Democrats in this state?
The goal here is to make sure that we have a state that is friendly for families. So Michigan used to be in the top 10 for education. Now we're 38th in the nation. Education is very important for everything in the state. The foundation of the state is based in education. So if we can improve our education, then we can improve our workforce and we can bring more businesses here. We have got to start having people come to the state of Michigan. We look at the southern states right now. They're drawing in families. We need to be family friendly. We need to be bringing livelihoods back to people and making sure that our economy is thriving. We can bring policies to the state that will do that. We can cut the overregulation. We can allow choice in schools. We can allow parents inside of schools and let them know what's going on.
What about the parental rights legislation in Florida that the governor there talked about? Chief Craig, who's running for your job, the job you want as well, sat in that seat last week and said, I not only support that legislation, I would extend it to the 6th grade so that sex education and talk about gays and LGBTQ issues are not taught until the 6th grade. Well, would you take it that far?
The bill talks about talking about sexuality and gender with students, and absolutely, it's not the school's place to talk to my children about gender and sexuality. In fact, in the state of Michigan, we should be focused on reading. I go back to, again, 50% of our third graders failed their literacy exam this year. That needs to be our focus, because from kindergarten to third grade, you're learning to read. From third grade on, you're reading to learn. If you miss that crucial step, we are robbing you of 12 years of education. We in our schools have got to start focusing on what these kids need to have a successful life.
Should Detroit schools get more money or more finances because they have a lower rate of success in school? If we just look at the numbers there, should Detroit be treated differently?
I think that we need to make sure that we are allowing parents to decide what the best school is for their child, and that will help all of our schools improve.
And
I would like to see the funding go to the teachers who are doing the best job. I would like to see teachers. We have so many young teachers.
Is there a criteria for that? It's very subjective, isn't it?
There is a criteria. We test teachers all the time. We just talked about the literacy exam. So if we're seeing students that are having high marks on those literacy exams. What is that teacher doing differently, and why should that teacher not be rewarded? We should be rewarding teachers.
Would you take per pupil funding and give it to parents to send the kids to private schools?
I would, yeah.
That would potentially gut many public schools.
Why do you think that?
Because a lot of people may opt out. There'd be a war.
Have you seen that in other states? Because that's not what it shows. Other states would show quite the opposite, that your public schools will thrive. In fact, I would like to see thriving public schools and thriving private schools. I would love to see parents be able to choose the best place for their child because they're the one that knows their child best. And maybe that's not a private school. Maybe that's a different public school, but every child learns differently.
Tudor, reading, writing, arithmetic. Now let's go to the arithmetic of an election. The 15,000 signatures that you need in order to get on the ballot. Are you close? And are you scared or afraid that you won't get those?
Oh no, we're good. We'll have them.
But 3% right now is what the last poll showed. James Craig had 31%. Does that concern you?
Not at all. We have a plan. We have a plan. We are sticking to our plan. And even if you look back at, I'll pick on Ron DeSantis, for example. When you look back at his election, even in June, he was about 20 points below his competitor. We are exactly where we want to be.
What about the Trump factor? You took a picture with him and the president of the Michigan Police Officers Association as you're running against a former police chief. Should we read into that, or is there an endorsement coming?
You read into whatever you want with that, but I have spoken with the president several times, and I believe that he understands the policies that we want. We've talked about the things that we've talked about here today, the importance of education, the importance of taking care of parents, making sure parents are in schools, and the importance of manufacturing. If you listen to Donald Trump, he's talked about manufacturing in the Midwest. That's my background.
Do you need Trump to win?
If Trump gets into the election, that person wins. So if the president is going to weigh in, please weigh in for me.
Charlie Langton will be coming back on the other side of this break in order to talk about everything we heard Tudor Dixon talk about. I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you so much for joining us here on Let It Rip.
Thank you.